So, thank you very much for joining my talk, Web and Mobile Crowd Testing Applied. So, I'm here with two challenges today. Challenge number one, I was going to tell you about the current experience of introducing crowd testing at Kazoo, but unfortunately, the mobile apps have been discontinued, so they're in maintenance mode. So, these things happen from time to time, but I've brought a lot of other experiences from history so far, from my own experiences, so don't worry. Challenge number two is that this talk is actually aimed to be 40 minutes, and we only have 25. So bear with me while we really rush through the first part of the presentation, and then the second part is actually where I'll talk about lessons learned. Okay? I hope you're ready. Yeah, the third challenge, actually, I was about to think about that, is that, now this is the last track talk before the coffee break, there's a bit of a slump. So let me hear. Tallinn, are you ready for this talk?
Yeah!
Yeah, whoa, that's amazing. But I know there's some Estonian spirit here. So what I like to hear is some groundbreaking, roaring, some ear-shattering yes. So let's try again. Nordic Testing Days, are you ready for this talk?
Yeah!
Woo! That's the spirit. Okay, so let's get going. A little bit about myself. My name is Werner. I'm Principal Quality Engineer working at Kazoo. We're an online car retailer, as you have heard already from Casper. We've been named the fastest tech unicorn in the UK, and we're expanding to Europe at the moment. So I've got quite a few years experience in the quality domain, in testing and in IT. I'm married with 3 sons. I have a dog as well. I like everything to do with the mountains, so mountain biking, climbing, skiing, you name it. And I wanted to share the weirdest experience I've had in testing so far, which is testing in Japanese. So you see that? That's from my time when I was in Japan. That's 20 years back, when you operate with dialogues where you don't know whether the click of the button now actually sends all the data you've collected to Nirvana or it actually stores it. So it was very interesting. And during my days in Japan, actually, I also found my enthusiasm and my passion for mobile phones and mobile testing. Because those mobile phones at the time, they were way advanced. They were really small, these Keitai. They had like a curved mirror, so for selfies, you could really place yourself and your friends right in the shape. And you would have color screens, little color screens already. That was revolutionary. So now, bear with me. When I got back to Europe, this is actually the mobile phone I got. Are you ready? Boom! This is an archaic Siemens C35, a brick of a phone. So you'd actually have to wear safety shoes in case you drop it on your foot, because otherwise you'd seriously injure yourself. So, but let's get going. The topic today is crowd testing. And I'm wondering, is anyone here familiar with crowd testing? Can I see some hands? Oh, almost nobody. Okay, then let's get rid of some misconventions here. So we're not talking about sauerkraut. This is not crowd testing. It's nothing particularly German about it as well. And it's also not cloud testing that I'm talking about today. No, crowd testing basically involves a lot of testers, a big community. And one of the misconventions is also sometimes that people think, hey, this is just like, a flock of sheep, everyone going, bah, bah, and, everyone following each other and nobody really doing what they know. But that's not true. Crowd testing at its best is really like this. It's like you're at a festival. There's a cheering crowd. Everyone is having fun, and there's somebody coordinating the fun. That's the DJ. And that's the person coordinating the crowd testing. And if you do that right, then it should be exactly like this. So let's get going. So the story we're going to rush through now, actually, it begins like this. This is me some 10 years ago. I was the lonely tester in a team. Anyone shares that sentiment? Has anyone had this experience? Quite a few hands. Okay. So my task at the software company I was working at way back was I was the test coordinator. So there were bi-weekly release cycles, and I was coordinating the regression tests. So there was a test checklist, and I had to ask, various people, so people from support, some consultants, some developers, and so on. And as you know, there are peaks, then people are dropping off, and so on. So it got quite boring, and people were dropping off, so I was having a hard time really finding people to help me do the regression test. And so what I did was the following. I had a look around and I found, hey, there's actually something new. There are some crowd testing or crowdsourced testing companies around. And actually, there's quite a bunch of different companies, as you can see. So one of them you might know, Testlio. They're actually based here in Tallinn. I've seen one of the vendors, one of the booths, Rocket Lab. They also offer crowd testing services. So there's manifold companies out there. And how does this work? So what do they do? So what you do, basically, me as a customer, I want my application, web app, or mobile app, I want to test it. And basically, I liaise with a test manager or a crowd testing coordinator from that crowd testing company. And like the largest players in the game, they claim to have a community of over 600,000 testers. So that could be professional testers, it could be housewives, it could be students, it could be anyone really. And they're testing about anything, from chewing gums over vacuum cleaners to software. So what I want to demonstrate now to you actually is have a bit of action. And I'd like to encourage everyone now to stand up, please. Everyone who has a mobile phone, could you please stand up? Thank you very much. You're my crowd now, right? So I'd like those people to remain standing who have an Android phone. So Apple users, you can sit down. No danger. Okay. So this is part of the crowd. Now, amongst you Android users, I'd like to call out the Samsung users. So whoever has a Samsung mobile phone, please remain standing. Everyone else can stand up. Thank you. Okay, we're limiting our crowd now. And now basically narrowing it down. I'm not sure if you know what operating system version you have, but I would like those ones standing who have Android version 12. So the latest one. Everyone else, please sit down. Okay, awesome. So you'd be my mobile testing crowd now. Excellent. Please, a round of applause for yourselves for taking part in this little experiment. So this is the way crowd testing works. So you basically get to select your crowd. And I mean, I used to be a professional consultant, so I won't disclose the names of the companies that I've been working with, but I want to kind of liken that to choosing an airline. So I had to choose an airline to go from Munich to Tallinn. And what do you do? Well, you start with a pilot. And that's what I did. So there were 3 different companies I took a look at. So the biggest player on the market, let's call it Big Air. Then the second company was Flyme, another new company on the market, very fresh. And another rather established company, let's call them MyJet. So what we did, we ran a pilot. And so we started out with Big Air. What we did, we asked them, okay, can you process test cases on our web application for that construction company I was working for? And they did exploratory tests instead. Okay, with that, well, communication problem can happen, we'll try again. Then we asked them to actually do exploratory tests because they did that really well. But in fact, now they did test cases. So there was some strange problem here. And it's as if on the airplane, the crew and the pilots, they speak different languages. So obviously, what's going to happen is also what happened here. The plane's just going to crash and burn. So they were out of the race. We were taking our chances with another pilot with the company called Flyme. So here, actually, it felt like, hey, we're flying backwards. So the system they had developed was quite immature. They were using Excel for test cases, and the screenshots for bugs, they were just piling up in one folder. You had to look for that yourself. So it was really horrible. So they were out of the race as well. And finally, the third company, MyJet, they just went off to a smooth start, actually. So on here, what we had was they could deliver on time, so all 400 regression test cases delivered within 2 days. They had a mature system for logging bugs, for creating the test cases, and for communication. They were quite flexible. We had preferred testers that we could reuse over and over again. And we could basically start tests 24/7, 365. Awesome. So basically, we embarked on that flight, and so the start, one of the critical aspects on a flight, went smoothly. So we're now in cruising altitude, and I want to show you how the first 6 months went. So I brought a graph with me. On the vertical axis, you see success, and on the horizontal axis, it's the time. So we started out, and you can see, oh wow, huge success. So they found bugs, thousands, tons of bugs. So our developers, they were really sweating because they had so much to fix. So this was great, but soon into this pilot, we discovered, wait, there's a problem actually. We figured that the test cases we had, they were unclear. The language we were using was very domain-specific for the construction industry. And basically, we had to overhaul the test data as well, because test accounts would interfere with each other. But it got from bad to worse. We realized that once a test flow is in the midst of happening, and we needed to deploy a new version of the software, we had to reset the whole test data. And we're using then some Oracle database, so to put the backup on was a matter of a couple of hours. So that really, really took a long time. And we didn't have that many non-destructive test cases that actually didn't change or interfere with the test execution. So we had to work on that, and after that, which took a few months actually, we saw that success means you have to invest as well into your own infrastructure. Right, so half a year into it, and 1.5 years later, as can happen on a flight, there were turbulences. So what was going on? Well, it's like you're in midair and you're running out of fuel, in combination with really bad weather. So what happened was that the company we were working with actually, so the initial contract ran out, and now they've been very successful at what they were doing, and they were actually asking for a 50% price increase. That's quite a lot. So we didn't know what to do because we had 3 months left, and we were looking for options. Any ideas? What could we do in this situation? You could do that, obviously, but there's budget restrictions. So I'm going to tell you what we did. We ran another pilot, because in the meantime, there were some further companies in the market. As you can see here, there's this company, I call them Up and Away. They were a new Berlin startup, actually, and they were really promising. So we gave it a second shot. And now we're actually not just testing the website, but also the mobile app. So we tried Big Air again, and we saw that the app was actually altered. So testers didn't test the same app that they would get from the stores. So that resulted in worse performance, and also they couldn't deliver on time. So they wouldn't be finished in 2 days. So again, unfortunately, that was a no-go. We went with Fly Me again, but we saw the mobile devices we required, they didn't have most of them. So they only offered a few devices, they weren't on time, there were signing problems, and the platform was really not the greatest. So we then checked Up and Away, and it was a super promising platform. They had good entry prices as well, and we were really ready after the pilot to get started with them. But what happened was that they get eaten, and guess by whom? By Big Air. So basically they purchased the company just then to trash everything and to put the whole software in the bin, just to basically eat up the rest of the market. So what we had to do is to get back to MyJet, and we had to enter some negotiation rounds. So obviously we were not just testing web, but now also mobile apps. We knew they had a great team. They had all the devices we wanted to test on, and the performance was really great. Also, we didn't have any signing problems here. So all good. So basically, going back to our storyline here, it's like we're refueling the airplane in midair, and we're off to a smooth landing in Tallinn. Great. So now that we've kind of chased through the story build-up, we're going to slow down a little bit, and I want to share with you 5 lessons learned from the crowd testing experience. So the first one is you have to do your research. So basically, check with the companies what kind of test case, or test charter management system they have. How well does the platform perform? Try to test it out yourself. Then you should also take a look at the pricing model. So some companies offer pay on a test case basis, some offer flat rates, others offer different packages. So really check how you can actually get to business with them. The next one, very important, is tester motivation, because as you might know, this is playing the game, right? If you're a tester, a crowd tester, and you're getting paid per bug, that means you're just gonna report anything you'll find, even if it's not according to specifications or to exclusions. And basically, that's what you want to avoid. So you want the testers to really have a base pay, so you don't get like duplicate bugs or anything reported, really. So this is a screenshot from one of the conversations that we saw in one of the pilots, actually, where a tester was arguing that it's unfair that a bug has been refuted, or because they're not going to argue about $4 they're getting paid. And this is something for me as a paying customer, I don't really want to see that, right? So one more suggestion is to register as a tester yourself on the crowd testing platform. You get to actually test a lot of interesting products and pieces of software as well, things that haven't been released to public yet. So try it out, or you can also join some beta programs by software companies, so it's really interesting. And then you can see how they treat testers and what the tester motivation might be on their end as well. So one important thing to take a look at is also whether bug retests are included, because obviously crowd testers, they test, they find something, your developers fix, and then you want the same tester on the same mobile device to retest that. But you have to pay extra for that, then you might have negotiated for that beforehand. Right, so let's go to point number 2. You have to do your housekeeping. So if you're working with test cases, they have to be really concise, so write them in a way that anyone understands, no complicated language, make it easy. So concise test cases, then test data. So try to use non-destructive tests, have distinctive test data as well, and make sure that you can basically restart your tests at any point in time. So if possible, if you're using ephemeral systems, then you can just restart the whole system, whole environment, and no questions asked. So resettable test data, that's what has been mentioned. So let's move to lesson number 3. Always start with a pilot. It's a really worthwhile investment. So it's a small scope, you have to pay a little bit, but you get a good feeling of how things work. And you can dry run the communication channel. So how accessible is the test manager on crowd testing, and how easy is it to get in touch with the testers, because you might want to retrieve some extra logs or some videos, just communicate. So you can try that out. Then you should get a grip on the response times as well. So how responsive, how easy is it to communicate with the testers? Is the test manager blocking that out, or can you communicate directly with the testers to get your own feedback? And the availability of the target operating systems and the devices, especially if you're talking about mobile testing, that's super important. So try and see what they have on offer, and if that matches what you want to test for your mobile crowd test project. Good, that's leading us to the 4th lesson, the appy end, as I called it. So everything connected to mobile apps. So the question is, are the testers really testing the same app? So there are some companies who put something on top, which is convenience. It's kind of okay. It's a framework that allows the testers to quite easily, redline or highlight things, or take videos or snapshots or whatever. That's all great, but it might alter the performance of your app. And at the end of the day, they're not testing the same product. So that's closely related to how the app is distributed. So how does that work? Do you have to offer TestFlight, for example, to distribute your iOS app? Do they use Firebase? Do they have their own distribution methods? Is there a hockey app you can use? So check it out. They should make it easy for testers to access the app, and for you as a customer to actually provide the app. Then re-signing mechanisms, that's fortunately, that's pretty much a thing of the past, but we used to have things like this where you'd need an enterprise signing certificate to be able to distribute your iOS app to pretty much any iOS device out there. And this is a negative example where the company we were working with, or we're doing a pilot with, actually, they weren't able to provide that, so they gave us their enterprise signing certificate, and then we could actually see all the clients that they were working with. So Yeah, well, resigned with resignation. So that wasn't really the best of things. Fortunately, that's a thing of the past. No more big signing issues at the moment. Another question to ask is, can you do update tests? So, especially for mobile, when updating the app, does it keep your login details, all the data that was stored on the local device? So that's very important, and do they provide that? Then, can you target specific device groups? So, ABC. A could be your top-level device group, then you have your medium, and then your low-level devices. And do they have specific problematic devices? So in a minute, I'll show a video of what can go wrong. Right, the fifth lesson is about communication, and that's really essential. So is it easy? That's the biggest question. Is it easy to get in touch with the testers and with the test manager? So the feedback cycles as well. So how are the bug reports? Is there everything that you want? Most of the time you'll get videos attached as well. So do you get high quality bug reports with everything you'd expect? And how is the test manager and tester communication and the feedback from testers? So you can also get really good feedback on either your test cases or your test charters from the testers themselves. So it's really valuable. Then, is retesting possible? If you have a fix, then you want the same user with the same device to retest to verify that this has been fixed. So is it possible? How fast is it possible? Then the bug report quality. I've talked about that already. And finally, there are some providers who offer Jira integration, so you can actually import the bugs from their system into your own Jira ticket system. And some offer an API integration, so you can actually include crowd testing into your CI/CD flow. So that's very interesting, and that's what we tried out as well. Great, so these are the main 5 lessons. If you want to take one picture, then it's probably this one. This is the wrap-up. But I have one extra feature for you. It's number 6. You can also do your own beta. And this is from my previous employer, Join. It was an online video streaming company. So you can see here, it was kind of on the same level as Netflix or Prime Video. So it's for the German-speaking market. And we had these apps for iOS and for Android, and we were doing crowd testing here. But we were also raising our own beta community. And basically, on here, there's some downsides to it of having your own beta test community, because you have little control over what's tested. It's also very hard to retest, to grab the same user again to get some extra feedback, because it's voluntary, and it's a really gigantic communication effort. On the positive, actually, you get early and relevant feedback, and you're building up your own friendly user feedback community. So, give it a try. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Right, so I want to leave you with a few points why crowd testing especially is suited for mobile. Well, you have real people, so they represent your relevant user base. So basically, this is nothing like emulators, it's real devices, and it's none of these sterile lab conditions where the devices are reset after each test run. No, it's real users, real devices out there with extra apps installed, different configurations, different network conditions. And you really have realistic setups, especially if you want to launch your app in country-specific markets. This is most important. So then, I brought with me 2 examples of what crowd testing actually brought us. And this is one example. When working at Join, here you can see a user. This is actually from one of the crowd testers. We didn't realize at all that users were using headphones with the play and pause functionality. And this simply didn't work with our Android app. So as you can see here, that user is showing a different app, TikTok, or whatever that was. And for that it worked, for our app it didn't. And we had completely forgotten about that. So it was really awesome to see that. The second example is even more drastic. You can see here, there's an ad break. So, you have to watch a few ads, and then you get to watch the real content. And once the ad break is over, your content should start, in theory. So let's watch what's happening. So the ad is over. And now, Boom. A device restart. In my whole mobile testing career, this is a Samsung Galaxy J5. It only happened on this device, and I've never seen anything like that before. But yeah, this is also what we found only using crowd testing. So, right, on a final note, closing now basically, I want to quote myself and let you know that crowd testing is only ever successful as part of an integrated test strategy. So don't rely on crowd testing on its own. Have your test automation, have your exploratory testing, have your unit tests, have your whatever. But crowd testing will be a very valuable add-on to that. And with that, you'll be able to have a crowd testing experience like this with engaged testers, a great crowd, awesome feedback, and everyone having fun. So, before we go into questions, I'd like to invite you to actually rate this session. If you liked it or if you didn't like it, I'm always very welcome for feedback. So please use your Sched app or just scan this QR code. And then I'd like to say thank you very much for attending.
So is this the Sched QR or your own?
It's pimped. No, this is actually the official Sched.
Good.
So no worries.
Just testing. Yeah. So,
Good.
thank you very much, Ron, for the session. Any questions? There's one. So this side has a question. Now it's your turn, yeah?
Oh, yeah, thanks, Ron, for doing this talk. I've been meaning to do a similar talk for years, a few years now as well, because I've been in the same boat or maybe in the same plane myself, and actually went through and evaluated and did a re-signing with a contract also this year with a partner. So I was just wondering, how did you also manage make this decision to manage the test cases yourself? Because I know a lot of companies offer you that, hey, we'll take care of even the test cases for you, and you will be giving up a lot of actually then freedom with that. And if you kind of then didn't do that, how did you manage actually that creation inside your company? So was he like every feature team then responsible for maintaining and creating their own tests to distribute among the crowd? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's always good to have crowd testing buddies, so we should connect afterwards, so great to hear that. Yeah, I mean, obviously they offer anything, these crowd testing companies, so if you want, they can manage your test cases. We didn't do that because we already started having some test cases, so we actually then transferred that at Join, for example, into test charters to offer more flexibility to testers, so they're not blinkered anymore and they can test on the side as well. But one thing they did for us, and that didn't come at a cost, because obviously you have to pay for that extra service, is that they reviewed the test charters and we gained some valuable feedback. So that went back into that. And obviously what you have to do, as with any test charters, test suite, you have to revisit your tests, your test cases, and then keep them up to date. That was really up to the feature teams then to actually handle that. So I hope that answers the question. Cool.
Hello. Thank you for the great session. I just want to ask, what type of... sorry, I'm
hello.
here.
Hello. Yeah, it's really hard to see you from up here.
So I have a question. What type of projects do you think that we should do this testing for those projects? Do you think that for every project we should do this testing, or like some specific projects, like application or website, whatever you? Yeah.
So I would rate the use case for mobile applications to be the best use case, actually. We started out doing tests for our web page as well, but there, you can automate a lot, and I think with mobile automation, that's still quite iffy. There's a lot of effort involved, maintaining your own device farm, for example, or even outsourcing that. It gets very expensive, and that's when crowdsourcing actually scales in comparison to automating that, if you want to test on real devices. But yeah, I mean, they offer not just software tests, they offer localization, internationalization tests. You can test usability as well. So anything where you actually need a real user base giving you feedback, then I think crowd testing would be a good alternative and something to try out. And as I mentioned before, you can always try with the pilot, have a limited project time and then see if that works for you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Good.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I have a little bit of top question. I really love these doodles. Did you make them yourself?
Yeah, I've drawn them myself actually.
Amazing. Thanks.
Yeah, so it took quite a bit of time, but it was fun as well. So
I'm glad somebody asked this. So, do we have more? So, where? Oh, okay. This is like Murphy's Law. It's always in the back.
This is exercise, Casper.
Thanks for the presentation. Did I understand correctly that the test cases you had in your system something like test rails or whatever, not inside the crowd testing provider system? Or did I get it wrong?
Yes, so initially we had them in TestRail actually, and we exported them and then imported them to the platform the provider was using. So, that's a bit of duplication, but well, that's the deal with integration. So you can make it easier and work with test charters, but still there's this element that you have to have some sort of duplication, like on the crowd testing provider side and on your end. So you could decide, okay, we're going to use just the crowd testing platform as our source of truth and then just store everything on there, and we'll scrap that in TestRail. But then this might be difficult, referring to issues and to the test case as source of truth when creating a Jira ticket, and then the developer needs to go to the crowd testing platform as well. So it's a bit of a wager, yeah. So we did the duplicated approach, and it worked quite well. We just needed to update that quite frequently. Hope that answers the question. Yeah. Okay, you're welcome.
Looks like we don't need the microphone after all. There's one in the back here.
Hi, thanks for the presentation.
Hello.
So I have a question regarding the difficult scenarios that some of the testers reported. For example, the one with the Samsung J9. Do you have a very large farm of mobiles in your office which you can use to reproduce, or did you use simulators, and how did that work for you?
Well, actually, that one we tried to replicate because initially we saw that and we tried to replicate or reproduce that ourselves. We didn't have this Samsung J5 device with, I think it was Android 8 at the time. We checked on Browser Stack, we didn't have it on there. We checked on Source Labs as well, that device didn't exist. So we actually went back to the actual tester to get some feedback. We came up with an idea from the logs. So the developer tried to fix something in the encoding stream. That actually proved to work then. So we did get the feedback from the tester themselves.
Got it, thanks. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that it's difficult to reproduce this.
Yeah, it is.
Scenarios.
So we also used to have our own device farm, set up for automation and everything, but, we can't include all the devices out there, so it's a huge maintenance effort and it's costly as well.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a reverse question. So in crowd testing, you also receive, let's say, flaky results, and you're not able to reproduce them. Well, this case was that you don't have the device itself, but let's say you actually are able to replicate the environment, and and it doesn't reproduce. So
Yeah.
how are you able to, tell away the bad seeds, the flaky crowd testers?
Yeah, so there's one filtering mechanism already on the side of the crowd testing provider. So there's actually a test manager or test collaboration manager who coordinates efforts and then also tries to retest anything that has been reported. So we'll get only real bugs, and if we can't reproduce, then I mean it's really hard, because then also developers have a hard time to fix something if they cannot read from the logs or see from the videos or the screenshots what's going on. So worst case is that we just have to leave it and then say, yeah, sorry, we can't reproduce that. So yeah, I think that's a real life situation, but it doesn't happen that often. So that's the positive.
All right, thank you very much. Speaking of real bugs, usually if you find a real bug, then the developers will say, this is a dream, this is not happening, this is not real. So thank you again, Ron.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. Thank you.